Hi everyone, thanks for joining me for my midweek Chinese takeaway cook along. Music is brought to us by Buddy Holly tonight, and tonight I'm doing the most requested dish that people have been asking for, which is my Szechuan style chili and salt chicken. The recipe in a variation can be found in my Chinese takeaway cookbook. And there's also a variation in my veggie Chinese takeaway cookbook. Now I say variation because you can get black pepper and salt chicken, you can get chili and salt chicken, and you can get Szechuan style chili and salt chicken. So the three differences: black pepper and salt is literally black pepper and salt. Chili and salt, the one that we would serve in a restaurant, is chili, salt, black pepper, and a little bit of 5 spice. And then the Szechuan chili and salt, which I'm doing tonight, is chili, black pepper, salt, and Szechuan peppercorns. But I quite like the flavour of 5 spice, so I've actually put half a teaspoon of 5 spice in mine. So I'll go through the mixture with you in a second so you can start getting it ready. All right. For this recipe, you are going to need a chicken breast chopped into bite-sized pieces. There's 2 chicken breasts there, that's why it looks quite a lot. We're going to need some rock salt or salt, an egg to help bind, and obviously our big tub of corn flour. For the actual chili and salt side of things, I'm going to do an onion chopped into a fine dice, a green pepper chopped into a fine dice. I'm going to put a little bit of spring onion into it as well. I've got 2 fresh chilies, 2 garlic cloves, which I'm going to roughly chop, some oil, a little bit of sesame oil at the end, and then our salt mixture. Now in here, I've got 1 teaspoon of salt, a third of a teaspoon of black pepper, which is ground down already, about 1 teaspoon of Szechuan peppercorn. Now the Szechuan peppercorn gives you that numbness, which is a strange feeling in your mouth, but it's like eating aniseed, I guess. And then with me, I've put a little bit of 5 spice in mine. So there's about 2/3 of a spoon of ground 5 spice in my mixture as well. Okay, so the very first thing we need to do is to get our oil on. Now a lot of people were asking when I did the chili and salt king prawns a couple of weeks ago, how much oil. There's about 5 centimeters of oil in this pan. It's not particularly wide. I want to try and keep it narrow because then obviously I can get more depth of oil. So I'm just going to get this on, and we're going to heat this up to around about 170 to 180 degrees. So while that's doing that, I'm going to season my chicken. So there's just a little bit of salt, and I'm just going to season my chicken, and to that I'm going to add 1 egg, and I'm going to get my gloves on, and I'm just going to bind the egg and the salt and the chicken together. You can see the egg just floating around in the bottom. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to massage this egg into the chicken. Now you don't really need to marinate this because we're frying it and we're going to cover it in corn flour, but I want to make sure that the salt and the egg is well combined. Now to this, I'm going to put a handful of corn flour, and all that's going to do, that's going to help this become a bit more sticky. So here's my corn flour, and I'm just going to sprinkle that over this, and carefully, because I don't want to get the clouds of corn flour all over the place, I'm just going to start binding this mixture together, and it becomes quite sticky as the flour starts to stick. And then from here, I then transfer. I'm going to put all of this into the corn flour. Now the bigger the bowl, the easier this is, okay? And I'm just going to make sure that every single piece of this is then covered in corn flour and egg. So for a start, I'm just going to slowly turn this around in the flour, and you can see that it's already starting to separate because there's a lot of corn flour in here. There's probably 2 cups of corn flour. In actual fact, you probably only need half a cup, so you can dredge each piece individually, but it does take a long time. So you can see that each piece now is covered in corn flour. So again, if by magic I have 2, and what I'm going to do now, I'm going to bang off the excess flour, and I'm just going to pop these chicken pieces into my clean bowl. And this is going to make it easier in a second just to drop the chicken into the oil without having to worry about banging off all the corn flour. A tip, if you've got a chip basket or of similar ilk, I guess, you can literally take this as a handful, drop it into the chip basket and give it a really good shake. And what happens is it separates itself off, all the excess corn flour falls back into your bowl, and you're done. Be really quick. There's my chicken coated in corn flour, egg and a little bit of salt, and I'm just waiting for the oil to come up. So as we're waiting for the oil, what we can do now is just prep our veggies. So I'm going to take my onion first of all, just going to chop it in half. Now this time I'm going to leave the root on because I want to chop my onion quite fine. What I'm going to do, I'm going to lay it flat on the board, and about 1 centimetre up I'm just going to carefully slice it near enough to the root. Okay, so I've got one cut just there. I'm going to do exactly the same thing on the top, just being careful of your fingers because accidents do happen. Now from here I'm just going to cut near enough to the root again, so I've got like little tiny slithers, but they're still attached by the root. Now I'm just going to pinch this together, tucking my fingers away and using the flat of my knuckle just to run my knife through this. And when I get close to the end, I'm just going to, so this piece here, all I do now is I just chop round it. So it should just leave just a bit of root at the end. Now my spring onion, I've only got a couple of pieces. I'm still growing these in the garden, and I've only got literally, that's my contribution. So I'm just going to chop this into long slithers, but it should be lovely because I only picked them about half an hour ago. So nice fresh spring onions from my garden. The garlic, I'm going to flatten, I know they're peeled already, but I'm just going to flatten it, and I'm very roughly going to run my knife through the garlic, which is fine, just like that. I don't know if you can see that. So instead of having like a mince this time, I've got like chunks of garlic, so that can go there. Then I've got my chilli, and I'm just going to chop this into a little slither, so little tiny ringlets. So I put that over to one side, and the very last thing I need to do is just chop my pepper, so it's about the same size as my onion. And again, this is only rough, so there are my veggies all done. I can now get rid of this glove. I had the mistake earlier of rubbing my eye with a bit of chilli, so I'm not making that mistake again tonight, hence the glove. Okay, oil is nearly there, not quite, so we'll give it another minute or so. Now, if you can go and grab yourself some kitchen paper, and this is going to be my serving bowl, but what I'm going to do, when the chicken has finished frying, I'm just going to lay it into this bowl just to catch the excess oil. Right then, so that's probably a bit hot actually, it's about 220, I was waffling along. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put through the chicken quite quick, and I'll just turn the heat down because I need to get this oil cooled down a little bit. So 2, 3, 11 and 12, so batches of 12 for me. That's going to bring my oil temperature down a little bit, and I'm going to turn the gas down ever so slightly. I'm going to cheat a little bit. So if you do get your oil a little bit too hot, you can add some cold oil just to help bring the temperature down ever so slightly. I'm going to put in around about 1/4 cup, I guess, just to help bring this oil temperature down. I've got to make sure the chicken's cooked, and if it's too hot, what's going to happen is I'm going to burn the outside, and the chicken in the middle is going to be raw. So, okay. So the temperatures, I brought the temperature down. Chicken's in, I put some cold oil in there just to help get that temperature down just a little bit. Now we talked about this, how do I know when the chicken's cooked without a food thermometer? You do this simply by looking at what's going on in the pan. At the moment it's bubbling away, I can't pick it up and show you, but at the moment it's bubbling away, it's spitting everywhere, and this is the water evaporating from the chicken. Okay, when this settles down, chills out, And when it starts to chill out, I know that my chicken is near enough cooked. So I don't know if you can hear that. This is really starting to settle down a little bit now. I'm going to give it 1 more minute, and I'm going to pull a piece out and just give it a chop just to make sure it is cooked. I'm quite confident now that it's nearly done. The pieces, again, they're only, well, not even as big as my thumb actually. So they will cook very quickly. Okay, I'm going to take a piece of this chicken and I'm just going to quickly give it a chop. And you can see, I don't know if you can see in the camera, that's cooked. So in there now, that's settled right down. So I'm just going to get this out and drain it on my kitchen paper. And then I'll get the second batch through. And I'm going to start getting the second batch of chicken through. Now ideally, I should wait for this to come back up to heat. What happens when you're using hot oil, you want to be able to sear the outside as quickly as possible so the oil doesn't penetrate the meat. Just wait until your temperature gets to about 180 again before you drop your chicken back in again. But it's doing all right. It's got a nice sizzle going on. Right, that's the second batch in. So I don't know if you can hear that now. So this batch has taken just that little bit longer because the oil wasn't quite at temperature and I'd turned the heat off. This is just starting to settle down a little bit in my pan now. So let's get a nice big chunky piece out. It's all quite thin, these pieces actually, that's quite chunky. And let's just run the chopper through this just to see if it's cooked or not. And I'm just going to drain this with the other chicken over some kitchen paper. Non-stick wok this time. I don't know if you saw the video that I posted the other day where I was using my Netherton round bottom. So I'm just going to get that on. There's nothing in there at the moment, and I'm just going to get that up for, it's going to take about 90 seconds just to get some heat into that pan before I start cooking. Okay, so my wok is just coming up to heat. I'm going to get about a tablespoon of oil into my wok. So that's about a tablespoon. And I'm going to start off with my spring onion, my onion, now the reason I put the onion in with the garlic and the spring onion is it stops the garlic from burning too quickly. So after about 45 seconds or so, and the spring onion and the garlic is really fragrant, and I've managed to get a little bit of colour on my onions, I'm going to add my pepper, and then finally the chilli. Now the reason I put the chilli in towards the end is that it fills the air with these sort of like chilli vapours, and it makes me cough, which is not nice. To that now, I'm going to add my pepper. And you know what? I'm going to risk it, and I'm going to get my chilli in now. So I'm just going to try and brown off these onions just a little tiny bit before I get my chicken in, and then we can season up, and then we're ready to go. So in there, you can just start to see now, it's just starting to brown. So to that, I'm going to add my chicken. Now, what I'm going to do now, turning the heat down to about a medium, I'm going to take half of this mixture for a start, and I'm just going to carefully sprinkle this over my chicken. And I'm just going to coat each piece of chicken, and the onions and the pepper and the chilli and the garlic. Now heat goes off, and I'm going to add the other half, making sure that each piece is evenly coated in this. Well, my mixture tonight was black pepper, salt, Sichuan peppercorns, give that numbness, and a little tiny bit of 5 spice. And then what I'm going to do, I was going to try and do this all neatly, but I'm going to do this like I would normally. So I'm going to turn this out. And there you go, guys. Oh, actually, my sesame oil, forgetting about my sesame oil, just a little quarter teaspoon, half teaspoon of sesame oil, just to give it that little bit of seasoning towards the end. And there we have it. My Sichuan style chili and salt chicken cooked for you live on Instagram, requested by the masses. Hope you've enjoyed. Hope you do give it a go. And don't forget to check out youtube.com/GotlinWen. I'll be back next Wednesday, 12 o'clock for the children and 6:30 for the adults. Hope you have a fantastic evening. Until then, stay safe, stay well, and I shall see you very, very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.